Hello, welcome to episode 29 of the NOTCAST, and it is the 17th of December 2020. Now, normally on the 17th of December, I'm pretty much allergic to my house, and I'm not going out, and I'm not staying in, because going out was the new staying in, but staying in is the new everything at the moment. Normally around about this time, lots of bands I love are touring. There's normally a Friday night at Shepherd's Bush where I see the Wonder Stuff and have a few drinks and a band that I like probably supports, and I jump up and down and I sing all the words and I feel a little bit drunk. That's not happening. That would normally be happening tomorrow, but that's not happening this year. I've been to one concert since March. I went to see Pop Release itself at a socially distanced show at the Islington Assembly Hall last Saturday. That was my first gig in 9 months and a week. So this year, 2020, I managed to get to 11 gigs, which is about a tenth of what I normally get to. It was just really, really weird to be there. But I love Pop Release itself. I've seen them about 31 times, possibly more than 31 times over the past 30 or so years. They've always been excellent live and continue to be so. So, as I mentioned the last time that I did a video, if I get something wrong, don't forget to tell me, because that is how the internet works. And lo and behold, in the meantime, somebody has told me that I am wrong about something. It's not really that big a deal, is it? You know, I'm not being or creating endlessly referenced academic articles or a version of Wikipedia. I'm just a dude talking about bands and music that he loves. Now, today, I'm talking about U2's third album, War, seen by many people as an absolute classic by the band and a lot of people's favourite U2 album, or certainly in the top 5. Not in my top 5, not in my top 10 actually. And I'm going to talk about this album and the singles that came with it, which are New Year's Day and Two Hearts Beat as One and Sunday Bloody Sunday. 40 was also released as a single, but only I think in Holland. I don't have that because that's too expensive, or more correctly, I've never seen a copy that I felt like buying. Certainly not at the prices they were charging. And this is going to be the time where I go through my U2 collection, and there's going to be 2 things that were released commercially that I don't have. Ooh, can you wonder what they are? Do you really care? Probably not. Who knows? So, as I'm going to mention, War was really U2's last throw of the dice in 1983. The future of the band was somewhat at stake commercially. I think the deal between Warner Brothers and Island had just about expired, hence why October wasn't massively pushed in America. And back on the heels of October, which we discussed in a previous episode, which is probably my least favourite, or more correctly, the worst U2 album in my opinion, War was pretty much a band on the ropes, coming out fighting, all guns blazing. It was pretty much the do or die card from the Escape from Colditz board game. If this album hadn't been a success, U2's future may have been very, very different. In all honesty, I think it would have been the end of the band if this album hadn't performed commercially. They would have had an alternative career where they would have probably been playing to smaller and smaller audiences before it just became financially impossible for them to continue. And then probably around the year 2005, they would have reformed to play the album in full, War, live on a 20th anniversary reunion tour at venues of probably about 1,500 people to about 3,000 people, and they wouldn't have written any new songs. Ed would have probably gone off to be a rocket scientist. Bono would have become the chief executive of a charity. Larry would probably have made .com millions, well, I don't know what Larry would have done, but whatever it was, there would have been no bullshit whatsoever. So this was the last throw of the dice for the band at the time in 1983. They didn't have very much money. You know, they were judging their success by how far they were rising up the bill at the Workter Festival, which they were playing pretty much on an annual basis. So, for example, on the October tour, they played second on the bill Here they played third on the bill, so they were coming on at 3:15 as opposed to 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So making progress, pushing rocks up hills, slowly but surely. And the reason why this album, I think, really pushed U2 into the into from being a minor band to being a major band, or at least a band worth watching, was they made a commercial ascent with this album. They made a creative ascent, and also they sold more tickets, they sold more records, they were on more television shows. But of course, that's not where the album starts. So the first single from the album is New Year's Day. This is a 12-inch single. Now, most bands during the course of their career only get to write maybe at most 3 songs as good as this. And if you've got 3 songs as good as New Year's Day, you've got a career. Not an amazing one, but you've got a career. And some people coast off that for the rest of their lives. It's a great, straightforward, anthemic rock song, straight up there. Now, if the band had split after this, if New Year's Day had been, the first single that they'd ever released, and War had been the last album that they'd released, then they would probably be on dad rock compilation CDs alongside their former contemporaries, Big Country, Simple Minds, The Alarm, and other bands that wore their hearts on their sleeves and waved flags. But this is a great song, and I think U2 really knew it was a great song when they were recording this. Now, if you listen carefully across the multitude of different formats of the song, there are somewhere in the region of 3 or 4 different remixes, and each one of those remixes has unique performances in it. So if you're listening to New Year's Day, bear in mind that the version that's released on this single, which is Two Hearts Beat as One, has a special US remix by Francis Kavakian. There's also this version, Sunday Bloody Sunday, which has it as a B-side, and here's another version of New Year's Day. So the band really knew they were on something. They're really plugging that song. They knew they had gold here. It was a great U2 song, and they knew that, and they were working with it. But it's a really interesting song for a number of ways. First one is, if you take all the different unique parts across all of the mixes, there's about 10 minutes of New Year's Day, and the long version is about 5 minutes 45 seconds on the album. And the 12-inch version is about 2 seconds longer because it has an extra drum beat just before the guitar solo, which they later removed for the album mix. But what you do have is there's extra and unique vocals, there's an extra verse, there's different guitar parts, there's different drum parts, there's different on the various 12-inch mixes. I will plug this. I have created a kind of like a monster Godzilla length version of New Year's Day that's about 10 minutes long. Well, it feels 10 years long, which has all those different parts wrapped into it. But this was the song that, if nothing else, U2 would have made a career out of New Year's Day, Two Hearts Beat of One, Sunday Bloody Sunday, I Will Follow, Gloria, and been known as that band that were really good for the first few years of the 80s and then disappeared from view. But they didn't. They did something very, very different than that. But what I will say is, not only that, also on the B-side of New Year's Day were 3 live tracks recorded at the aforementioned Workter Festival, which is the band really being aware that in these days, in the 1980s, live shows were there to sell records. Records didn't, or music, commercial music, didn't exist to sell concert tickets. These days, people made a loss on the tours. They made the money on the records, and what U2 wanted to do very, very clearly was to let everyone know they were a very, very good live act, which they still are. And they just decided that they were going to release lots of live B-sides as adverts to go and see them. Also, filled out a 12-inch single, so if you ran out of songs at the last minute in the studio and you didn't know what to put on there, throw some extra live songs in. Always works. So on to War, the third U2 album, and what you'll see is really it's very clearly marking itself as an evolution from Boy, because the cover from Boy is the same person, Pete Rowan, but obviously 3 or 4 years older. He's not so much a boy. He's more of a very clear child turning into an adult. There's a more aggressive look in his face. It kind of symbolises a form of conflict, which is clearly mentioned in the album's title of War. And it's a more mature record than Boy, but I think Boy is a better album because War should have had more maturity in it. You know, although the band are still 22, 21 years old when they made this, you know, they're not the boys of Boy. And to go and endlessly repeat the type of stuff that you're writing on your first album, you better be AC/DC. You know, AC/DC cracked their formula with the first record they ever released, and everything after that is just, you know, extra songs in exactly the same style. So War, I think, is a very sincere album. It wears its heart on its sleeve, and its heart is really bleeding. It's very obvious. It's very direct lyrically. It's very much a point of pointing you in the face and going, "Look, mate, war is wrong. War is wrong." It feels like watching an Oliver Stone film. Or maybe, you know, if you're the listener and you're listening to the lyrics, sometimes you feel a bit like a dog that's been naughty and your owner is rubbing your face in it and going, "Look, mate, war is wrong. Look, I know war is wrong. I don't need Bono to tell me war is wrong." Okay? It's a very sincere, bleeding heart, obvious, direct album. There's very little in the way of subtlety in this. It really does, you know, come out of the gates all guns blazing and keeps blazing. It's full of big gestures. It's full of the things which were called the big music by Mike Scott from the Waterboys, who later wrote a song the next year and all released it about the same time, called the big music. It's a very direct album, and this is why, to me, this album has probably aged poorly. Now that I think poorly is probably the wrong word to do it, but other U2 albums have aged better than this, primarily because I don't feel like I'm a naughty school child when I'm listening to the Joshua Tree. This is one of the original inner sleeves, I think, that came with it from Island Records, advertising other records available on Island Records, including Boy and October and pretty much everything Bob Marley ever released. Although probably not. It's a good album, but a good U2 album is not their best. Nowhere near their best. You know, their best is perfect. So to give an indication, the band were putting a gatefold sleeve in. Here's a photograph from I think the video shoot for New Year's Day. The lyrics are on here. They're very, very blunt and. They're not all the lyrics on the album. There's only 6 of the songs have their lyrics printed on the gatefold in a sleeve, by the way. So, you know, for example, 40 doesn't have a lyric on, and they aren't presented sequentially either. So the track listing for that album, 3 of those songs, the band have been playing very, very recently. Sunday Bloody Sunday, New Year's Day. As recently as 2016, they've been closing shows with 40. They've also played Two Hearts Beat as One a couple of times. I think 3 or 4 times in 2015. They also played a little fraction of Two Hearts Beat as One in Turin in 2015, which is the only time I've seen the band perform that particular song. I run a slightly different track listing on my version of the album, on my playlist actually. So it goes New Year's Day, Two Hearts Beat as One, Sunday Bloody Sunday, Seconds, and ends with Drowning Man. And then flip it over, side 2, Surrender, The Refugee, Red Light, and you know the other song, Like a Song, and then ending on 40. What you will not necessarily know is that there's a multitude of versions of War. This is, I think, the Island Records first CD edition. Maybe with the second CD edition, it even features a biography of the band. U2 are from Ireland, if you didn't know, and their music falls well outside that country's established show band tradition. Okay, so this is almost like a press release that's been stuck on the back of the album. Pretty weird, but there you are. And then, because the gatefold sleeve didn't quite fit in, we've got a slightly redesigned one here. So this CD, this is, I think, one of the first CD issues. There is an MFSL, which is Mobile Fidelity Sound Labs version of the album, which has 2 alternate mixes on there. So the alternate mixes are, I think, Seconds, which has a longer excerpt from Nick Broomfield's documentary Soldier Girls, and Like a Song, which has an alternate longer ending. I haven't been able to find a copy of the MFSL version of the album, at least not one that I'm bothered about. I downloaded the songs off the internet a long time ago, and that works absolutely fine with me. Although quite why the band didn't include those alternate mixes on the 2008 deluxe edition of the album, I'm not quite sure. So we've got New Year's Day. It comes in a multitude of formats, mostly backed with Treasure, which is Whatever Happened to Pete the Chop. Pete the Chop was an early song that they used to play, and then they rewrote it and turned it into Treasure. Then we had, as a single, there or thereabouts the same time, we had Sunday Bloody Sunday, which was not released in the UK, so there's not a promo video for Sunday Bloody Sunday. Sunday Bloody Sunday is backed with Endless Deep. Now, this was released in some countries instead of Two Hearts Beat as One, because the only thing that these two releases share, apart from the cover art, is the B-side. So I see, Sunday Bloody Sunday being chosen as the A-side in some of the more obvious territories. Now, Sunday Bloody Sunday is probably a song that a lot of people love, and I find it really, really obvious. Very, very direct, and I don't think it's particularly great, probably because it's been doled through repetition. I've heard Sunday Bloody Sunday at near enough every U2 show I've been to. I said near enough because obviously not all of them, but there are some. It's a great song, but it's become doled through overuse. And again, it's almost kind of like they're like a prayer or something like that, or living on a prayer. Actually, at that point, it was a big hit. It's a very direct, very, very blunt song, and it's a big song about something very, very important indeed. No more. And keep telling you that war's wrong. I said no more, no more, no more, as if somehow the world is full of people that are arguing, and suddenly because Bono's written a song about it, we're gonna stop arguing and there's gonna stop being wars. I get war is wrong, okay, guys. In case any of you worked out, war as an act is wrong. War as an LP is quite good. It's still nowhere near as honkingly stupid as Belfast Child by Simple Minds. What is that child? What is he hearing? Why is he going back to those? What's the sound of the fucking panpipes? You half expect a fucking leprechaun to turn up in that song. Still, the speechifying Sunday Bloody Sunday is the most obvious, the most direct, the most graceless, I think, of U2 singles, because it's got no subtlety in it whatsoever. And that's why I really don't like it. It's great fun to see it played live, but it's not a song that connects with me on an emotional way. It's a song that connects with me on an intellectual way. I get that as a concept, war is very wrong, and it gets the crowd going, and that gets me going because I'm excited by being in a stadium or an arena full of tens or hundreds of thousands of people that are all going pretty bonkers and dancing around a lot. But it's not a great U2 song for me. It's a great stadium rock song, but it's a very, very thin line from Sunday Bloody Sunday to what is it, 69 Guns or whatever it's called. Sorry, Alarm fans. All those songs which are just really obvious, direct, straightforward. They've got no second layer to them at all. It's all on the surface. It's kind of like watching a cartoon about politics with a stadium rock backing. Now that sounds like I'm kicking Sunday Bloody Sunday. It's a great song, really good song, but it's really obvious, and sometimes you do need really obvious. It is the Big Mac of war songs, or the Big Mac of anti-war songs, actually, come to think of it. And one of the things that you'll find about U2, I'm sure you already know this because otherwise you won't be watching this, is that U2 are always better live, and their songs are always better played live. And when you're listening to the albums, it's almost like you're listening to really, really expensive demos that then become, in their live configurations, the best and most appropriate versions of the songs that people constantly listen to. I hardly ever listen to U2 studio albums. Firstly, because I've heard them a lot. Secondly, because when they play them live, they're normally better. But Island Records really, really stuck their weight behind war. Hence why we got a multitude of singles. We got 4 or 5 different single releases, depending upon which country you were in. And we got songs like Seconds and Surrender were played live a lot. Drowning Man, which is still hasn't been played live in full, was rehearsed in 2009 and then was played as a snippet or an interpolation at the end of one in 2017. It's still a song that people love to hear, but I went to a number of shows on the 2015 tour, and Sunday Bloody Sunday was played almost all of those. 40 was played at probably about half of those shows, and it created a tradition which now still exists. War is their most adolescent album, and it's because it hasn't got the excuse of youth and guile. It's got many years of experience behind it, and the band, I think, were really obvious here. So Ireland put their weight behind the album. Here's the picture disc version of it. This is the first U2 picture disc that was officially released. This has been counterfeited. I've checked the run-out groove on it. This is not the one. This is a more common black-edged commercial picture disc with this cover on the back. And they're creating iconography here. It's a real sign that the Ireland were fully behind the band because they were doing picture disc albums. They really wanted you to get to like this band that they'd invested loads of money in. And by the way, the War was quite successful, but all it did do though for the band, in pure commercial terms, is it paid back the amount of money that Ireland had invested in Boy October and War by being successful. So the band came out of War with about £30,000, and then they invested that £30,000 in Under a Blood Red Sky live, which I'll talk about in a minute. There's a second single was released from the album, which is Two Hearts Beat as One. Here's a 12-inch. It's got a 7-inch mix by Francis Kavakian. It's got another US remix of New Year's Day, and it's got a special club version mixed by Steve Lillywhite of Two Hearts Beat as One. So the band were really kind of getting into remix culture at this point. Where has it gone now? There was a double 7-inch of Two Hearts Beat as One, which had just two 7-inches inside a standard sleeve. Two Hearts Beat as One and Endless Deep. Disc Uno and Disc Dos was the remixes of Two Hearts Beat as One and New Year's Day. So if you hadn't already owned New Year's Day, you bought this single, you got New Year's Day. You bought Two Hearts Beat as One, you got New Year's Day on the 12-inch. Endless Deep wasn't on some of the 12 inches, and in fact, the band believed in the song so much that they then also released a version of it, which was basically again the 12-inch of Two Hearts Beat of One, but with a new cover on the front and a new selling you very clearly you can still buy New Year's Day by U2, and this is again, the 4 minutes 30 seconds Francis Kavakian mix, backed with a remix. Oh no, actually, yeah, it was remixed by Francis Kavakian at Sigma Sound in New York. So this is effectively a double A side here, this 12-inch of New Year's Day and Two Hearts Beat as One. Anyone would think the band really believed in that song, but if you're a band like U2, you don't have 3 songs as good as New Year's Day. You have 30 songs as good as New Year's Day. And so therefore, when you get to, they dropped New Year's Day for whole tours. I think on the Innocence and Experience tour in 2015, they played it 3 times, which made it to be something like 1 in 25 shows. That means because I saw them at the London O2 and they played New Year's Day then, that means that I've managed to see them play New Year's Day on every tour that I've ever seen them, I think. It's a great song. Absolutely, undoubtedly a great song. Now, on the last song on War was 40, which takes its lyrics from Psalm 40, which has a very close resemblance. I mean, if I was the god, I would probably sue for the lyrics on 40. Actually, I've never checked the writing credit. So let's look in this booklet and find out. And see who gets the writing credit for 40. Can't find it. I'm not going to bother wasting your time whilst I look through that. Although, let's have a quick look. This is the 2 CD version of War that was released in 2008. So on this, again, not the longer extended MFSL mixes of seconds and Like a Song. Your standard 10-track version of the album on side 1. Disc 2 has Endless Deep, which is on the B-side of New Year's Day, has a track called Angels Too Tied to the Ground, which wasn't released at the time. There's another song from around about that era called Be There, which is circulating on YouTube, which is not released. And then you have 4 remixes of New Year's Day in a row, and then you have 3 remixes of Two Hearts Beat as One in a row. Not that interesting to listen to 4 remixes of New Year's Day. However, there are 2 unreleased Ferry Corsten remixes of New Year's Day, which were commissioned in about 1998, 1999. The idea being that they might possibly be released as a single for the turn of the millennium. Tonight we're all going to party like it's 1983. And around about this time as well, the band released, or more correctly, 1991, the band's old 12-inch single started to be repressed and reissued on CD. So here we have the CD single of New Year's Day. Everything that's on that is on the 2 CD version of Boy. Here is the CD single of Sunday Bloody Sunday, backed with remixes of Two Hearts Beat as One and New Year's Day. Again, these are all on the second disc, the 2008 version of Boy. It's nice to have, but not essential. So the band went into the touring mode and started playing live a lot, and then they had that $30,000 which was left over from, or more correctly, their projected profit from the tour of Under a Blood Red, of a protected tour of war. And so they took that money and they thought, right, so we're playing live, we're playing great live shows, and our live shows are an advertisement for how good the band are. But if you don't go and see U2, you can't tell how good they are live. The band would take any TV appearance that was available to them. But what they'd not done for a while is really been able to put a live document, a live film out. And in those days, by the way, hardly anybody did live films. There's a lot of people that moan about how bands like Pink Floyd or Led Zeppelin or whoever don't have oodles and oodles of live footage from the 70s. Well, look, live footage was really rare. It was expensive to film, expensive to mix. The only place you could really see it was at the cinema or on television occasionally. The sell-through VHS market didn't exist. Now, by the time of Under a Blood Red Sky, the band's mini LP, pay no more than $3.99, according to some stickers, by the way, which was a special price. It does tell you it's a special price, although that text has been removed from the 2008 reissue there, by the way, ladies and jelly spoons. So Under a Blood Red Sky, the band took all of their money from the war tour, all the projected profit, and they invested it back into filming a show at the Red Rocks Amphitheatre, as well as creating a mini LP. Now, I think this was a really, really canny business move for them. Come rain or shine, the band had to play the show at Red Rocks, and they had to film it, otherwise they'd lose all the money. And on the day of the show, the weather was torrential. Really very bad indeed. By British standards, it was a standard October Thursday, but by American standards, it was probably apocalyptic, end of the world, raining, cats and dogs, and all the things that come with it. But the band invested all of the profits from that tour into the live album and the live sell-through VHS and live film of Under a Blood Red Sky. Now, when you look at this, actually, the released the released album is only 8 songs long. So, it's less than half the length of a U2 show at the time. Black inner sleeve. I'm sure I stole that out of something else at some point when I was much younger and didn't care about keeping the original inner sleeves on my LPs. But it's 8 songs. It opens with Gloria, 11 O'Clock Tick Tock, and I Will Follow. Now, those 3 songs normally were the 3 songs that open the encore. Last song on side B was Party Girl, which was the B-side of Celebration. Then we had Sunday Bloody Sunday, The Electric Co, New Year's Day, and 40 as the last song. So it didn't feel like a U2 gig. You could put a couple of the B-sides in, for example, and the band had already released a number of B-sides from the work tour and the Boston show. But what you didn't have you didn't have a full U2 live show. You had nothing like it. You know, a live double album for a band that's only done 3 albums. That's pretty ambitious, actually. And what you'll find is it's a budget, mid-price, mini LP, greatest hits, perform live advert for U2 as a live band. And I think Paul McGuinness made some really, really great ideas around this. So the original VHS release and the original TV broadcast was about 55 minutes. The DVD version is about 85 minutes. So this has got half an hour of extra footage in. This is the 2008 remastered, reissued CD plus DVD. No extra audio songs on there, by the way, but about 17 or 18 live songs on there. So, for example, on the DVD release of it, there's Out of Control, Twilight, A Cat Dub, Into the Heart, Surrender, 2 Hearts Beat as 1 Seconds, Sunday Bloody Sunday, Cry, October, New Year's Day, Through a Brick, Day Without Me, Gloria, Party Girl, 11 O'Clock TikTok, I Will Follow 40. Woof, I'm tired just reading that out. I want to. 6, 9, 11, 14. Yeah, so that's 18 songs there, which is 10 more songs than are on the album. And I think probably around about 6 more songs are on the original VHS release. And the original VHS release and TV broadcast didn't quite work because it went from being daylight to being dark very, very quickly indeed. But it was free advertising for U2. Paul McGuinness didn't charge Channel 4 to show it on television, so they showed it quite a few times because it was free TV. And it was excellent. Although the band paid for it, the band effectively made and produced a live show that they then used as a free advert, or an advert which they then gave to TV companies to broadcast it. And since live U2 is, as I've said before, better than studio U2, this became an advert for how good U2 was for people that didn't leave the house or couldn't afford to go and see them play at the Edinburgh Playhouse. It was good representation of U2 live at that point. Bono was still waving flags all over the place. He was climbing up and down, the scaffolding. He was half killing himself. He was putting the lives of the people who were in the road crew and the crowd at risk, and that's why he stopped doing it. But effectively, he was this DVD, this VHS, was the thing that made U2 big, because U2 looked bigger on the TV screen than they actually were. And you'll notice there aren't that many crowd shots in Under a Blood Red Sky on VHS and DVD, because only about a third or a half of the people that bought the tickets actually turned up. So there were less than 8,000 people there. The band's biggest show, I think, was an arena in LA, which was something like 10,000 people. So they were just starting to edge into arena territory. But in the same way as Depeche Mode did with 101, when they played one stadium once in America, and everybody that wasn't paying attention suddenly thought of them as a stadium band. U2 played themselves out as an outdoor stadium type band that were absolutely brilliant, and look at what you were missing out on. And here it was, for free on the tube on Channel 4 on 11:55 p.m, and it was a free advert for U2. So watch it, buy it, and it's a special price. It's only $3.99, guys. It's not like a $5.99, $6.99 LP. So if you like that, go and buy the half price LP that's at a special price. And if you like that, well, there's all these other records to buy. Brilliant bit of marketing, brilliant bit of commerce. And what we'll see many, many times is U2 are very, very good at making a sound and astute commercial decision. They're very good at reading the tea leaves. Now, there's a couple of things about Under a Blood Red Sky to mention. First one is the initial vinyl releases of the album contain an excerpt of Steve Sondheim's Send in the Clowns, and you have to be really, really careful because it's been taken off quite a lot of the CD issues. Check the matrix numbers on the albums, otherwise you've got a shorter version of the Cry Stroke Electric Company, which doesn't have the snippet of Send in the Clowns. And actually what you'll also see is that when they perform other songs where Bono sings parts of Stephen Sondheim songs, such as America, In the Middle of Miami on the Mexico City DVD and VHS of Pop Mart, they quieten the vocals so they don't have to pay him, or I presume they don't have to pay him. Now, for a while, Under a Blood Red Sky, by the way, this is the version we're sending the clowns in, I think. Awful back sleeve, thank you, Island Records. So the first, I think, probably digital release of the show was here's a VCD of Under a Blood Red Sky. This is from Russia in 1997, I believe. And let's just compare the track list to these two. So, for example, it opens with Surrender, and seconds. So it's missing Out of Control, Twilight, and Cat Dub, Into the Heart, Two Hearts Beat as one. So it's missing 4 or 5 songs right from the off. And then it roughly follows the chronology of the show, but it doesn't have Cry or the Electric Company on the video. So, it's the VCD. The only thing that's different is this version on DVD has got more songs than that version, as far as I can tell, and maybe this one's got Send It the Clowns in. But I can't even play VCDs on my technology anymore. I keep it just to put a hole into my shelves. If you get a chance, this is the one to go for, the CD and the DVD. Now, the CD was recorded over 3 shows. It was recorded, I think, at Rock Palast, Boston, and Red Rocks. Now, Rock Palast was on TV, Boston was on radio, Red Rocks, obviously, VHS and TV. Now, those shows are very heavily circulating. Here's a recently issued 4 CD box set type version of the shows on a record label called Coda. They're very good at putting out old radio broadcasts. This one cost me £10 for 4 CDs, but this has the whole of the Boston show, which, a fair chunk of it is on Under a Blood Red Sky. It's got the Ritz from New York in 1982, and it's got the I can't remember the name of it now. It's got a festival in the US on the 30th of May 1983. So effectively you get 3 complete live shows on 4 CDs for about 10 quid. If you're into collecting U2 bootlegs and you really like the early years and you want some, between this and that, you can get 5 full shows plus a huge chunk of Rock Palast as well. Also worth looking up is Rock Palast on YouTube, the TV broadcast of it. So really, I think Under a Blood Red Sky and War was probably one of my least favourite periods for U2. The band were very obvious on War, very straightforward. It's pretty much like having a brick sent to you in the post. It's pretty unambiguous, that album. And of course, if you are thinking about having more War, no more. Don't do it. But I will say, very good album. U2 haven't made a bad album, but by their standards, War, I think, is very direct, very obvious, and very straightforward. But Under a Blood Red Sky really was the game changer for them. The playing live was the advert for the albums, but the album of the live show was the advert for the band, and that's what got people into the band. Is this the Live Aid appearance in 1985? U2 Live really sold people into the band as opposed to the records. And that's where the band, I think, were very astute in that, is that they said, right, so you will give you effectively a free hour of television, Mr. Channel 4, and we'll give you a budget price live album, which is just about the same as a 12-inch single. And if you like that, here's all the other bands. Or here's all the other music of ours, which you can listen to. But Under a Blood Red Sky is kind of like nicotine, standing outside the school gates, giving you your first free cigarettes. As you have that, then you're hooked. You're like, oh my God, yeah. Now, I came to Under a Blood Red Sky when I was about 15, 16. And even at 15 or 16, it was a bit too on the nose for me. It was really direct, obvious. Dude, war is wrong. And people are terrible to each other, and don't go planting landmines. It's that kind of album. And it was very direct, very straightforward. So even then, at that point, I was like, this is really blunt. It was like reading a party political. It was like dancing to a party political broadcast. Except instead of advertising a party, political party, it was advertising a rock party. Yeah, so War and Under a Blood Red Sky are effectively liberal politics that you can dance to with the side order of God. Now, what I will say is the albums are great. Remixes are pretty good. I'll post the link to the remix which I've done of New Year's Day in the comments box. Click on that if you want to hear 10 minutes of New Year's Day. But it's not my favourite album. Now, when it comes to ranking the U2 albums, I'm afraid to say that War is not going to be at the top, guys. Although you've probably worked that out already. I would put this in my bottom 5 U2 albums. Not because it's a bad album, but because it's really obvious and blunt. I think U2 are one of the few bands that really got better as they aged. And I think it's absolutely fascinating to watch artists now as older people trying to still make sense of the world at the ages of 49, 50, 60, 70, 80. Some of the best albums that people make are towards the end of their lives. Athletes have careers which are based upon physical dexterity and ability, and often, if you're a footballer, your career is 7 years and that's it, you're done. And after that, you run a restaurant as the guy that used to be a footballer, or you go on celebrity TV shows where people make you kind of eat flowers while someone else drops weevils on your head. But in a band, you don't run out of things to say when you're the age of 45 or the age of 25. You carry on, and what's interesting to me is tracking a band as it grows older through time and it tries to navigate its way through life. And this is a thing that we will get to over time as I start to talk about more bands and more discographies. War is a good album, but it is baby photos compared to what U2 became in future. Now the band make a huge leap with their next release, which is going to be another video I'm going to touch upon at some point in the future. I'm probably going to talk about the Star Wars original movies shortly in my next episode. But what I will say is, no, War, great album, great U2, really, really great album, good U2 album. Not in my top 10 of theirs. It's in the bottom 5. Now that's probably going to make me controversial, but frankly, if there are ever concerts again and you see me at one and you want to talk to me about it, just buy me a pint and we'll hug it out and everything will be fine. It's a very big world. It'd be boring if we all liked the same stuff, which is great. By the way, that's a residue off a price sticker. Because in those days people would put price stickers on the actual things, and there is nothing more annoying than sticky stickers that you can't get off. Anyway, from Pete Rowan, from U2, from Denver Red Rocks, and from everyone else who lives in my house, including the 2 cats, thank you for your time. Hopefully that's been not tedious. Yeah, let's go with that. Let's set an entry level of expectation as not awful, and then everything after that is brilliant. Have a good rest of the week and the next few days. Look after yourselves and each other, as Alan Fluff Freeman always said. And I will see you on another episode where I'm probably going to talk about Star Wars, because that's what people with my shape of genitals generally do. I said generally, not all of them. I know some men, guys, dudes hate Star Wars. That's totally fine too. And some people hate U2 as well. That's totally fine too. In fact, if you hate all of the stuff I'm talking about, that's great. You don't have to tell me. Doors that way. In the meantime, I will see you all again at some point. I will try and be talking about the next U2 album that they released, which is The Unforgettable Fire. I will talk about the Star Wars original trilogy from 1977 to 1983, and I've got some other things lined up which I'm going to talk about as well. Thank you very much. And don't forget to tell me if I'm wrong in the comments, and don't be surprised if I ignore you. Anyway, see you in the meantime. Bye.